Easter! My name is Liberty and welcome to the Northern Beaches Alliance Church online service. So now we're going to have a time of worship.
The pleasure of your presence is what we've always wanted. The movement of your spirit is what we're longing for. You've come to bring your glory and all the adoration. You deserve the highest praise. And with our hearts wide open, our hands held high, we see your beauty and our voices cry. King of kings and Lord of lords, you're the one we came before. We worship you. We worship you. King of kings and Lord of lords, you're the one our hearts adore. We worship you. We worship you. You gave your blood and body to pay the sinner's ransom. Your dignity was poured out for the ones you love. And how can we not sing out for all you've done to save us? And you deserve the
Good morning. Well, it's Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, and of course we're talking about Easter. So I just wanted to share just for a few minutes a perspective on Easter that you may not have heard before. When you think about Easter, you've got to think about two significant events. First, obviously, is the death of Jesus on the cross. Then the second one is his resurrection, that today, Resurrection Sunday. In the Bible, you see it the night before Jesus died in the Garden of Gethsemane. The humanity of Jesus is revealed in a conversation that he has with his Father, where he almost pleads with the Father to let this cup pass from him. In those moments, I think that we can really identify with the humanity of Jesus. Of course, the next day when Jesus is hanging on the cross, like any human being who's been nailed to a cross, he's bleeding and he's suffering like any human. So we see very clearly in the death of Jesus on Good Friday the humanity of Jesus. But what's really significant is that it's actually quite different from our humanity, because as Jesus hung on the cross, he was perfectly obedient. He was obedient to the Father's will. Although he didn't want to die, he died because he knew there was no other way. He was perfectly obedient to his Father. Jesus hung on a cross, he was perfectly self-sacrificial. Because you see, he wasn't there because of any wrongdoing that he had done. He was there because of the wrongdoing that the rest of us have done. In fact, whole of humanity. So his death on the cross was not only perfectly obedient, it was perfectly self-sacrificial. And of course, his death was perfectly loving. See, there's no greater demonstration of love than to give up your life for someone else. So in the revealing of the humanity of Jesus on the cross, we see a humanity that is absolutely perfect, which is unlike our humanity, because none of us are perfect. Therefore, Jesus is able to be our representation of what it means to be a perfect human being. Because Jesus is a perfect human being and represents us to God as such, we're able to be real about our own humanity. We're able to be honest about who we are and our imperfections, both now and in the past. I want to just read you out a couple of imperfections that Paul, the writer of 2/3 of the New Testament, talked about when he talked about his past. He said this in Acts chapter 26. On the authority of the chief priests, I put many Christians in prison. When they were put to death, I cast my vote against them. Many a time I went from one synagogue to another to have them punished, and I tried to force them to blaspheme. I was so obsessed with persecuting them that I even hunted them down in foreign cities. He says this also in his letter to Timothy. Even though I was a blasphemer and a persecutor and a violent man, I was shown mercy because I acted in ignorance and unbelief. See, Paul was able to be really honest about his own humanity because of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. I remember years ago, before I became a Christian, I think there were two things that really characterized my life. It was fear and dishonesty. I can admit that now because of what Jesus did. He is my representative He is perfect humanity, so I don't have to pretend to be perfect. So the second aspect of Easter I want to talk about is the resurrection of Jesus, which really reveals Jesus' divinity. The fact that God raised a dead man back to life vindicates Jesus' claim that he was God himself, that he was the Son of God. And that's really significant. We can't have proper embracing of Easter without not only recognizing Jesus' humanity, but also recognizes Jesus' divinity. And this is significant, and the world will try to suppress this aspect of Easter because it's about the supernatural intervention of God in raising a dead man back to life. Resurrection reveals not only something supernatural about Jesus, that he is the Son of God, it also reveals something more about God's people. In Acts chapter 4 in the Bible, it says about Peter and John, as they went around talking about the resurrection of Jesus, that they started to announce in Jesus the resurrection of the dead. What's significant about that is it's not just about the resurrection of Jesus. It's actually also about the future hope for God's people. Through the resurrection of Jesus, we see our future. One day we also will receive a resurrection from the dead. See, before this time, life after death was not really known. It was a vague concept. There were some parts of Judaism that believed in the resurrection of the dead, and there were some parts, like the Sadducees, who didn't believe in the resurrection of the dead. See, but with the coming of Jesus and his rising from the dead, we see an emphatic revealing of what the future hope will be. So when we think about Easter and Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, Jesus' resurrection, we also see our future hope. In fact, in 2 Timothy, in Paul's second letter to Timothy, right at the start, he starts to talk to Timothy about his situation. Timothy is fearful. He's concerned about the suffering he may face in declaring the good news of Jesus. And Paul reminds Timothy of the hope that he has because he's put his trust in the resurrection of Jesus. Paul says this, he says, Jesus Christ, who has destroyed death and has brought life and immortality to light through the gospel. See, when Jesus died, he brought out into open the truth about our future, the future for the people of God. Our future, we have life and immortality. One day, after our death, we will be resurrected with a new body. So when we look at Jesus and we see Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, we're also seeing our future hope. So when we think about Easter this morning, we need to think about Jesus' death, yes, absolutely. And we can identify with Jesus' death through our humanity and his humanity. The fact that he takes on our wrongdoing and sin because he was the perfect representative of humanity. But we also see the divinity of Jesus. The fact that there was a supernatural act to raise Jesus from the dead. And the wonderful thing about that is a promise to us that we will also one day be raised from the dead. We will have new life. Life that includes immortality, that we will live forever with a resurrected body. So today, on Easter Sunday, let's not only think about Jesus' death and what that means for our humanity, let's also think about Jesus' resurrection and what that means as our future hope. Hope you have a great day.
You stood before creation, eternity in your hand. You spoke the earth into motion, my soul now to sing. You stood before my faith and carried the cross for my shame. My sin weighed upon your shoulders, my soul now to sing. So what can I say? What can I do? But all this heart, oh God, completely to you. So I woke up on salvation, Spirit alive in me, my life to declare your promise, my soul now to sing. So what can I say? What can I do? But all this heart, oh God, completely to you. So what can I say? Oh, what can I do, Jesus? All this heart, oh God, completely to you. So I'll stand with arms high abandoned in awe of one who gave it all. I'll stand, my soul unto you surrendered all. I am yours. So I'll stand with arms high abandoned in awe of one who gave it all. I'll stand, my soul unto you surrendered all. I am yours. So what can I say? And what can I do that offer this heart, oh God, completely to you? So what